This is Will Morin. The floor is yours, good sir.
Anin, bojo kinawea. I was quite happy and honored to be on this morning to listen to one of my dear friends, Barb Riley, and Rita Sands was another wonderful friend. And I've got a couple of my students that I sent the link to join in on this session. So Ani Francis, I'm very humbled to be here on many levels. So Ani Bojo, Will Morin Dishlakas, Kiiwedinong Nosut Mah'iingan Mah'iingan Doram. Bkejwanong and Nojaba, and Donaki Mumpi and Swakamak, Miinwaa, Mzimbabwe, and then Miinwaa Do, Kinamage, Mzimbabwe. The dialect that I introduced myself in is the language that my mother spoke. It's the language that my grandparents spoke. It's the language my mother-in-law and my father-in-law speak and spoke. It's the power of the connection to that language that gives me some of that motivation. So I'm just humbled to be here, happy to be sharing. But since I only have 30 minutes for my presentation, I'm going to dive right in, and I'm going to share my my PowerPoint with you as quickly as I can to get us rolling through this. And so, as we understand the manner of our role as Anishinaabe people, is knowing that each and every one of us are coming from different states of dealing with the grieving of a loss or the traumas and such, and especially in light of everything that occurred over the past couple of years, where the unmarked graves that have come out and woke up many people and have added many to our list of allies. But it still doesn't eliminate the fact that we still have traumas to deal with. We have grieving to do. We have a lot of healing to do as a people, as individuals, and as communities. And so that's the journey that I'm on with my tool that I've developed. And it was a tool that I began working with when I was with the North Shore Tribal Council, which is the Miinwaa, which is a group of Indigenous communities from Sault Ste. Marie to North Bay that had gotten together, and they do a lot of programming for housing and so forth, as well as Ontario Works. And I was hired to help develop some life skills courses and to revamp some life skills courses. And one of them in particular was a lesson for these individuals that were on Ontario Works living on reserves and dealing with stuff, was this issue of dealing with loss and grief. But what was key was this model that had been created, as it was based on the generic sense of things. So I had to stop, I had to step back, and that's where my presentation recognizes that where am I going to go and what is it that I'm going to do with this material. So I had to understand, first, I'm an artist. I'm an artist of Anishinaabe ancestry, and I recognize that there's so much about our culture that many people, many Indigenous peoples are unaware of, that the word totem isn't for a pole. The word totem is our word for clan. And so by claiming these words and giving ownership, and this is a sculpture I have in Sault Ste. Marie as part of a sculpture garden behind the art gallery. And then there is this painting I did that's like a self-portrait that is a blend of many different elements. That these are the tools that I had that I draw from to help me communicate my message. And it was that message that I recognized. It was the message that was initially given to me from my parents, from my mom, from my mom's mom and dad, and the community that my Anishinaabe ancestry comes from is Michipicoten, and that community. So Bkejwanong is how we would say it in Anishinaabemowin, and that community has a evidence of settlement in that area on the north shore of Lake Superior, north of Sault Ste. Marie, that go back over 7,000 years. And that predates many of the cultures of Europe today. And that the Anishinaabe culture in this land goes back thousands of years. And their language is connected to the land. And that's where I wanted to begin. And so in order to do that, I had to review a lot of what was the lessons that had been taught to me, the language that was shown to me. And I honor many of those teachers that I had. And I first acknowledged my mom, who was my first teacher, so Beatrice Ba. as she had passed on 6 years ago. And I honor so much of what she inspired in me. But like many of our families, the dysfunction that was there, my mom married a Frenchman because she didn't want her kids to be native. She didn't want her kids to go through what she and her family had gone through, was to try to hide that nativeness. But yet she spoke the language until she passed. And that passion for the language, she shared it with me. But I kind of anecdotally share one of the first phrases that I learned in Ojibwe was "Squabush that I drink fire water, that to drink whiskey and wine. And that is a reflection of the dysfunction that many of us come from, the traumas that many of us come from, and that's the reality of so many of our people. But those were just the reminders of the importance of the language describing so much. And so I honor my mom as my first teacher. And I honor all these others that are wonderful teachers. One of them is Doris Wazanoba, Barb Nolan, Marianne Corbier, Sarah Ganawabiba, Verna Hardwick, Teresa Penguish, Shirley Williams, Isidore Toulouse, Nelson Toulouse, John Rice, Rita Sands, and so many more. And it's just my brain just aches when I stop to think about it. And in my daily prayers, I send thoughts to those people from those different directions, and I honor those elders that I recall, and I thank them in the language. And if they are not even Anishnaabe, I still acknowledge them in the language of those from the Cree out west, I would say Tansei, and to those Cree up north, I would say Wache, to the Haudenosaunee to the south of us, I'd say, Sego, Nyawe. I acknowledge them to the Walalin, to those east of us. Those are the ways in which I would honor in the language of our ancestors and the ancestors of those that have taught me many things. And so these are the keys. One of my first teachers as well in university as a student was Jim Dumont, and he echoed for many years how we need to teach the whole person. We need to teach to the every aspect of our being. We need to see that as he sees in understanding that we need to see that Indigenous people see the world in a very unique way. And in order for others to understand how we as Anishinaabe see, there has to be two things at place. You have to accept that we see the world differently, and then participate in our way of seeing. And if you don't do that, you won't get it. So that you have to accept that we see the world differently and then participate in that way of seeing. And that's what was on my mind. That's what I was thinking inside my heart when I was asked to develop these tools for grief and loss. But it was Jaganash teachings. It was Western language teachings. But it wasn't through our eyes. That it wasn't being understood the way we saw what we were going through. And so it was important for me to combine our teachings and find a way to it. And so that's where I start. I honor my friend Doris Bosanoba, and one of the first things she taught me. I finished my degree, went off to teach at Sioux College, and when I was there and we were working together, we shared an office together, that she would call me her little buddy, that she broke down the word. I thought the word for school was skoonagomgong, skoonagomik, and I struggled to even say those words, but it just didn't make sense. And the language teachers that were teaching me, that was the word that's in the schools, that's the word that's being used to describe school. But when she said to me, but that's not our word for school, because our school was out in nature. Our school was what we could learn from the trees and the animals. Our school, our learning came from the earth. And that's when she said, our word to teach is kinomage. And the beginning of that word, ki, means earth. Ki for the earth. That our first teacher was the earth mother. And when she said that, my brain exploded. Suddenly, I'm now not just a learner of the language. I'm now seeing the images that the languages are telling us, the actions the languages are telling us. And suddenly I went from stumbling to try to say kinomash to suddenly being able to go from not knowing to knowing. Kinomage, kinomage gomgong, kinomage gamek, kinomane, kinomage kwe. And that word just flowed because it had an image. And that image was a relationship to where that knowledge is coming from. And another word that kind of got me going was I wanted to know what the word was for this and what was the word for that. And I started gathering these words to try to, remember them. but it wasn't easy to remember them. But it was easy to see the image. Everyone put your hand on your heart. Unless you have a pacemaker, put it on your pacemaker. And I want you to tap your heart and say, oh, there. Oh, there. I want you to do it. Come on, let me throw on a couple of your microphones and let me hear you say it. I'm not hearing any hearts out there. I guess everybody's got pacemakers that are pretty quiet. Okay, come on, give me some heart. Let me hear it. Oh, there. Oh, there. Oh, there. Oh, there. All right. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, now I want you all together with me. We're going to say the next word, which is the word for drum, which is Odewegan. But this is how I want you to say it. Listen for it. Ready? Odewegan. Are you all ready? Kiiwedinong? Namajan? Ambe. Odewegan. 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 What is that word? What does it mean? Everyone's going to say drum, but it doesn't mean drum. It means heartbeat. That object that we call a drum is not a drum. It's a heartbeat, because it reminds us when we were inside our mother. Because that's where that warmth comes from. That's where that fire comes from. And that's where the next word is. Everyone say shkode. And that's where that fire is, at the center. When we have a campfire, it's at the center. When we have a ceremony, we have the fire at the center, at the heart. And our clan is the heart of our culture, the heart of our teachings, of our governing system. And that dodam has the word heart in it. Those teachings are fundamental. It reminds us where we come from. And one of my other elders, John Rice from Wissahickon, he reminded me of that DI. That by itself is a word that makes reference to, in words like in dis or in dissing, it's that umbilical cord, that belly button, but it teaches or reminds us or is speaking about mutual benefit or shared connection. Just those three word elements: the earth, the heart, and mutual benefit. Everyone got those? Give me a validation acknowledgement. You guys understand what I'm talking about. Three little word markers that you could find in a whole bunch of words. You guys understand them? Earth, heart, and mutual benefit. Ke, ode, and de. All right. So now, if we move on and we see that those teachings are connecting us to the earth, we see those teachings of the medicine wheel, those patterns in the cycles of the moon, the relationship to the changes in the seasons, and that relationship to Turtle Island, and all of our relationships and that connection to those changes. That we will see that those words are fundamental to who we are as Anishinaabe people, that our relationship to the earth, our connection to the heart, and our interrelationship and mutual benefit to one another, that it's not a me, it's the we. That is what our culture teaches us. And those 7 teachings, I want you to help me look at these 7 teachings. The 7 grandmother, grandfather teachings. And it was Barb Riley that said they were grandmother teachings before they were grandfather teachings. So I honor her with this and say that. Now look at the Ojibwe words and tell me, what do we see in these words? What do we see in these words in the teachings? We see the word for love. Do you see mutual benefit? That DI? If it's truly love, it's mutual. There's Zagyen, my mom would say to me, Zagyen, she would say, I love you. But if it's about love that we have for all of creation, the love for other people, the love for the rain, the wind, the sky, we would say Zagadawin. That's that inclusion of all of that and that mutual benefit. Look at the word for honesty, Bkejwanong. It's got that mutual benefit. If you're truly being honest with yourself and being honest with others, and you honor them, it will benefit you and it will benefit them. The word for bravery and courage. What do you see in there? You tell me, what's in the word for bravery or courage? Akadewin. Akadewin. What's in that word? Where does true courage come from? From the heart and the earth. It's in the word. It's right there. And it's telling us where those words are coming from and what those words mean. It literally breaks it down and tells us what true courage is connected to the earth and through our heart. That's where we get it from. And respect, Nendmowin, that word heart and mutual benefit. Truly, if you respect other people, you will get up off your butt and help them. You will make an effort and sacrifice for them because you know that what you do will benefit others. And in turn, it may benefit you. But that's not why we do it. To truly respect is to make an effort to help others from the heart. And that's truly what respect is. The word for humility, B.Ed, B.Ed, and it has the word mutual benefit, DI, and then we see the DE and then DI. So it's got the mutual benefit in it twice and the word heart. To truly be humble, to truly understand what humility is, you've got to realize you're not in control and that anything that happens to you is likely happening to somebody else. And that when you're embarrassed, other people are embarrassed with you. And that true humility is something that is shared. And it really reminds us that it's at the core. And if you understand humility, you have tools that'll help you move forward. And the word for truth, what does truth begin with? Anybody, somebody, yell it out, give it to me. Tell me you're listening. Show me you're listening.
Yeah.
That's right, the heart. To speak, and the bi that you see there, see the bi at the right after Bkejwanong, that be is that to come, and that's a word that Rita Sands taught me, and she blew my mind with the teaching of that word when I asked, what does that be mean? And she added it in, and it says, well, it means that, when someone is doing something and you want to make sure that, you're describing it and the movement of it. So it's not just magiashe, it's bemagiashe. They're not walking, masse, they're bemasse. They're coming to walk here. And that means when you speak the truth, you're speaking, you're coming from the heart. But what does wisdom not have that the other six have? What does wisdom not have that truth has, that humility has, that courage has, that honesty and love have? Does the word wisdom have the word heart in it? Does Bkejwanong have the word mutual benefit? Does the word earth in the word for Bkejwanong? No. Because in order to have wisdom, you need the other six teachings. You need the other six grandfather teachings. Without those, you can't find wisdom. If somebody is being a coward, they are not wise. If they are dishonest and not telling the truth, they are not wise. But when you find your path through these teachings, then they can help you make wise decisions, because you will be guided by your heart to the benefit of others connected to the earth. And that's what those teachings tell us. And that's what this model is that I developed as I blend these two teachings together from the grief and loss model that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross had developed together with our 7 grandfather teachings. And we celebrate them, because that first stage of grief was not 5 stages that was initially. She further developed and added a couple more for a total of 7. And that first stage of grief was loss and grief, the immobilizing, the trauma and the shock. And if you had the gift of humility, that would help you. That humility would help you better deal with, that you would realize you're not alone. You are not alone. That what you are going through affects others as well. And when you have that understanding and you bring that tool with you of humility, and you look at the next stage, which is previously understood as the primary stage or the first stage of grief, is denial. You can't have denial unless you have something to deny. And that loss or that trauma or that shock you're trying to deny. But if you understand truth, you're less likely to deny it, because you know where it's coming from. Bkejwanong, it's coming from the heart. And when you have those two tools of humility and truth, you know, Bkejwanong and Nendmowin, you have that as a tool to help guide you deal with that anger and frustration that comes from that loss. And to better deal with anger, the opposite of that is love. And that love is truly where we're at. Zagedawin. That when you understand love and you have the other three, the other two with you, Zagedawin, Nendmowin, and Bkejwanong, you are better prepared to deal with that anger and that frustration. Because frustration and anger is a solitary thing. It's an isolating thing. It's a lonely thing. It's a selfish thing. Whereas love is an inclusive thing. It's a sharing thing. It's a connecting thing. And when you have those and you work towards moving along that process, the next stage of grief is depression. But when you understand what respect is, you begin to realize it's not about you. It's about others. And that you may be depressed, but you're not the only one that's depressed. And that we work together like we would with the love. We bring that love and we're better prepared to do the work to help others. And when we are making effort to help others, we work ourselves through that depression. We are no longer alone, and we help others that are going through what we are going through. We model what that is. True respect is a demonstration of an understanding from the heart to the benefit of others. And then as we move along that stage of grief, that next one is we start saying, okay, we got to start testing and experimenting about how to move towards acceptance. And at testing stage is the challenging stage. It takes a lot of courage to make that first step. And that's where, as we move along this model, this tool that is this model, is that we understand those stages of grief as we move through them. We have to understand that that stage of grief begins with facing the loss, and it takes courage. It takes a step towards doing so. And once we face it, then we can forgive it. And if we forgive it, then we can let it go. And that's always the hardest part to do. But if we step back and we find the courage again, and we know the courage is coming from the earth, and we stay connected to the earth, and we find it deep within our heart, that we can make that step again. And we take that step. But some of those steps might be small little steps towards facing a little bit of it, and forgiving a little bit of it, and then letting go a little bit of it, and then giving it back a bit. And eventually we repeat that, and we keep doing that and keep working towards it like we would through the seasons identified in the medicine wheel teaching. Is that we go from season to season to season, that if you want to know someone's dealing with how they're dealing with a grief, come see them in each season. And then after a full year, visit with them, share with them, help them. And they will make another step. They will find more courage and take another step. And this momentum builds that momentum. And eventually they make that step to that final decision. And those decisions are to move towards acceptance. And when you have all of those things with you, when you have that humility, that truth, that love, that respect, that courage, and that honesty, when you're being honest with yourself, you've honest with the truth of that reality. When you are honoring yourself and those that you're honoring in the memory of what it is that you've lost, and you've let it go, then you can make wise decisions. And in that process of letting go, just like a tree that does not let its leaves go is dead. A tree that lets go its leaves gives back a gift to the earth so that it can grow new leaves in the year to come. Letting go makes it possible for us to carry on new and help others. And that is the foundation of this tool that I share, that I have, and this model that I present, is that we have to recognize in our teachings that we can find connections between them and Zhaganash Western mainstream healing systems or counseling systems. But this is one where it brings us to the language, and it's the language that is telling us the tools we need in order to heal as a people, as individuals, and as a community. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody have any questions? Let's get some questions out there. because I got 5 minutes left for questions. Anybody? Charlene? Gordon, Stevie, anybody? Marcia? Nobody has any questions on the presentation? I just ended a class early to come to the presentation today, and I'm in teacher mode. So does anybody have any questions? So I'm kind of okay. Ani Marcia.
Bonjour. I was looking for your handout in the in our package.
Okay, yeah,
Can
I
you share
sent a
that?
PDF. I sent a PDF to Charlene, and she's going to email it to anyone who wants it. So if you put your email in the chat, or send an email to Charlene, then she'll forward it to you by way of a PDF of it. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I sent it to Montana, and Montana's gonna forward it out to everyone's emails.
Fantastic, fantastic. Does anybody have any questions on that? On that model? Any comments? Any kind of like, hey, that's kind of interesting. I say the word differently, or I have a different word for it, or maybe I can use it this way or that way. Nobody has any comments. Give me something. Throw something at me. Trip me up. Let's go. Teach me something. That's why I'm here too. Okay, so let's look at some of the whoever the moderator is on the chat, if they can respond to some of the stuff. Anybody got anything out there? All right. Did you guys learn anything from this?
You're awesome, Bill.
Hey, Eddie, how's it going, brother?
Giizhik Kwe.
Oh, Nishin. I knew Eddie was going to be on. Way to go. Make sure you give Rita a big high five for me, okay?
Oh, non-emission.
And Barb, too, if you see her.
Jenny says Kima Miktowin.
Nishin. Yeah,
William,
and what's yeah, go ahead.
Aloha. My name is Nailima. I'm from Hawaii.
Wow.
I would like to say mahalo and thank
Mahalo.
you. A lot of these things that you have brought up here is a lot of the values that we instill in our culture too. Very realistic. I mean, coming from the words of our elders, it's very important. And for us, we're the people that should give life to it. It's very important. And reading the list that you have compiled, I mean, that's basically all the natives throughout the world. We have so much love and respect for everything that you brought up into, from the interrelationship with our elders, our earth, our elements, as well as for our ancestral knowledge from our elders that are from the past. They're still within us.
Yes.
And when we give breath to, and you're very right that language is very important. Language is the whole core of any culture, and in losing that, you can lose a whole part of who you are. So
absolutely.
Again, mahalo and
mahalo. I put my hand up like this to honor your ancestors and the star navigating tools of our hands, and connecting to that is that we have our star constellations too that echo of our relationship to the stars and to the earth, and each of our cultures have a lot of the same knowledge, but it comes from different experiences and different geographies. And so mahalo, I say to you and your ancestors, I say that as well, because in our language, when we say miigwech has in it the word miigwe, which means to give. And so when I say miigwech, when you say miigwech, we say that each of us is a gift to each other, and there is that benefit to one another. And so there is a giving, and in that giving, the other side is receiving. So there's a receiving in both ways. So I say miigwech as well to all of you. Anybody else have any questions? Mahalo. Anybody else got anything on the chat there? Anybody else jumping in? Thanks for joining, Francis. Anybody else? Nobody else got anything?
We do have a comment from Joanne Day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Majan.
Oh, I got it.
Majan.
Okay. What's the comment?
She's coming.
Okay.
She's coming.
Okay.
Oh, I don't like these machines, but I have to get up and talk to people through machines all the time now. But anyway, I just like to make a comment on how much of this teachings you've been talking about through this time you've been talking. But I noticed a lot of these words have that word oda in them, you know, and I never realized. I say them all the time, but I never really had my thoughts into, you know, having that word in almost every word. And I'm glad I heard you say that. Then now I can remember. Okay. Okay.
Miigwech. Oh, miigwech kintom. Yeah, thank you all. Okay, go for it. Bonjour. Anin.
We can hear you.
Miigwech Keniwak ya katpatch man. Anyway, Natsuan language and culture, you cannot separate that. That's who we are as Anishnaabe. You can't even bend that. Miigwech umamin mona.
Nishin, miigwech. You know, when we say that word bonjour, that word bonjour is also that identifier of who we are, because if you're not aware of the teachings, when we say anin bonjour is that relationship to nana bush. And since it snowed up north here, there's still stories to be told. So I could say his name, but if there's no snow on the ground, I can't say his name because that trickster will come. But when we say nana bojo, wena bojo, wabozo, wabus, that rabbit is the shape that he sometimes takes as a trickster, and he shapeshifts. So when we say bojo, we are honoring that first human being of our culture, that person that the creator lowered. And when he lowered that first human being, when he lowered Nana Bush down, he lowered him in a good way. And he said, I place you, the essence of the being, he said, Nishin, Abe. Who we are as Anishnaabe is literally the creator lowering that first human being. That Nishin, that Ni and Shin is I place, that Abe, the essence of the being. And that's the power of who we are, our culture. And I thank you for that reminder, how important it is. Our language and our culture are together. And that's who we are as Anishnaabe. Nishin, miigwech. And I'm 2 minutes past my time.
All
Back
right.
over.
All right. We'll make sure we dock you. Just kidding.
Nishin, miigwech.
All right. How about a nice big round of applause for Will Morin? Thank you very much. Hi, miigwech, brother, for your beautiful, beautiful, kind words. All right. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, just about, Charlene has a few words. So here we go. Charlene, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate everything you've taught us today, Will. And I've had some good telephone conversations with Will, and it's nice to see you sort of in person on this virtual format. And hopefully we'll get to see each other again at the next language conference in person.
Yes.
So be well, Will, and take care.
Miigwech,
Be good.
Right on. All right. Thank you very much.